Hello there.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dred, and welcome to Miss Valley Entertainment News. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a story over on IGN.com and breaking it down a little bit and just talking about this. This is an article talking um, about CD Projekt Red and kind of how they overcame things and where they're going now as far as um, their sequel game to Cyberpunk 2077. So again, this is on IGN.com. This actually came out on the 22nd of February. I don't know how many people have seen this article though. I haven't really seen a lot of people talking about it. So I thought we'd get some knowledge out about what went on with kind of recouping a bad launch on Cyberpunk and how it's kind of turned around and who the director is for the new game, a new Cyberpunk game, and where that's at in its in its life form here, in its early life form. So this article is called Phantom Liberty Game Director Says Cyberpunk 2077 Successor is in the Fun Phase of Development. Boy, that's a large headline when you got to read that much. I'm just saying. This is by Rebecca Valentine on IGN.com, and she's got here ad astra per aspera, which I have looked up because I had no friggin' idea what Latin means, and it means to the stars through hardships. So basically about overcoming bad starts kind of thing and shooting for the stars. So it says most companies die with a bad launch. This one actually came out stronger. That's a line from New York University's Stern School of Business professor Joost van Drunen. I apologize for the names I'm getting wrong. Quoted in the Wall Street Journal earlier this year. He was describing the transformation undergone by developer CD Projekt Red from the rocky launch of Cyberpunk 2077 in 2020 to the triumphant release of major DLC Phantom Liberty late last year. And it was with understandable pride that Phantom Liberty game director Gabe Amatangelo, we'll go with that one. Sorry, Gabe, opened his talk at the 2024 DICE Summit, quoting that exact line. Amatangelo went on to describe to DICE attendees just how CD Projekt had accomplished such a monumental task, focusing on the most difficult part, rallying a discouraged and frustrated team around a belief that such a thing could be done. When Cyberpunk 2077 launched, he said it seemed everyone around them knew that something had gone wrong at his company. The woman who worked at the local coffee shop, his landlord, everyone. The perceived failure was almost inescapable. That left Amatangelo with the critical job of rebuilding internal morale. That's kind of something we don't think about too often when we think about, they put out a disaster of a product when they released it after all the hype and stuff, and it was kind of a buggy mess, and people were crapping on them for this, and we don't think about, we think about fix your game. How could you release this? Fix your game. We think about these things and how it affects us. We don't think about how it affects the employees because we're too busy blaming the employees. But really, is it the fault of anyone who actually worked on the game? If there's a fault to them, it's a very small percentage. It's really the people who pushed and the investors and said, no, we have to push this out. We don't care what's done. It's being put out anyways. So we don't really think about internal morale too much, having to rebuild it. So it says he led by focusing on positives, encouraging the team to celebrate the elements of the launch that had gone well. He worked to build trust so that developers who needed help felt they could ask for it. And he worked with the team to come up with a handful of key drivers that would enable the production of the DLC to be a success. These included distributing ownership over decision-making and other checks so that the game director role wouldn't be a bottleneck on production, integrating and empowering QA closely with the rest of the team, even in early development, and just setting aside time for developers to actually play the game. A lot. After Amatangelo's talk, that's the DICE thing, I spoke with him about how the team is carrying these lessons forward into its next Cyberpunk project, currently dubbed Project Orion. In addition to what he shared in his Dice Talk, Amatangelo expanded on a number of learnings he's carrying forward into the new game. He emphasizes the importance of contingency planning and the need to share backup plans both up and down the chain of command, and to have multiple backup plans just in case. He tells me about the excuse me, the importance of putting oneself in the player's shoes when establishing a new story or world, and imagining what they might hope to see or do in that space so that you don't let them down. And he reiterates the importance of making sure studio environments are environments of trust. One technique, and a lot of the guys and gals that work for me know that whenever I put an idea forward, because of my position, sometimes people might not want to challenge my idea. So if I see that vibe, I'll then just play devil's advocate and I'll start to break apart my idea. Sometimes they'll be like, wait, so do you want to do this or do you not want to do this? I'm like, I'm not sure. Let's talk about it. We established a good chemistry and trust in my circle, my direct report circle, and I think that was replicated a lot as well. I was especially curious about Amatangelo's plans. It's a hard name to say when you haven't said it before. His plans in light of the announcement that he's heading up a new CD Projekt studio in Boston. Announced earlier this year, the Boston studio is CD Projekt's first studio in the US and will primarily be focused on Project Orion. I asked Amatangelo what it's like starting a new studio at such a challenging time for the industry as a whole. Amatangelo, oh, this is getting me. They're really twisting my tongue here. Amatangelo isn't responsible for the cuts last summer to 10% of CD Projekt Group's workforce based largely in Poland. But he does now find himself in the position of trying to build up a new studio in North America at a time when a lot of developers are looking for work. Well, the good part about that, though, it should be, is there's a lot of talented people out there who need jobs, and you should be getting a lot of resumes and should be able to pick and choose from the very best. That's a good thing. Over 10,000 developers worldwide lost their jobs last year, and roughly 6,000 have been impacted thus far in 2024. Amatangelo calls it one of the most difficult things going on right now, but he's hopeful the industry will bounce back and maybe learn some important lessons about planning in the process. I think maybe there'll be a maturing of structuring of certain facilities and aspects, he says. We're seeing that with the rumors around consoles and stuff. I think we're trying to figure out how to restructure things in a meta sense a little bit. But the bottom line is that the bottom line isn't going away. That's not decreasing. More people are interested in being immersed and taking a breather from day to day, so to speak, and having an opportunity to expand their minds or blow off some steam, stuff like that. It's not going away. So I think it'll sort itself out, but obviously some turbulent times. Speaking of maturing and restructuring, I asked Amatangelo specifically how, as studio head, he plans to work to mitigate crunch at the new studio he's leading, especially given the company's history with the practice. Similar to the techniques used throughout Phantom Liberty, you plan as best you can, he said. It's all about getting ahead of seeing what might come up in the future and scoping accordingly, resourcing accordingly, and also being flexible. If you put in some extra hours this week, take some hours off next week. Because admittedly, even at a certain point, there was where responsibility landed on me and I was like a bottleneck. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to do some double time this week. Otherwise, too many people are pulled out and then next week, I'm taking some time off. You do the best you can to mitigate that, but as long as there's that kind of climate and understanding of helping each other. Then when I took some time off, some of my reports rise to the occasion and fill in the gaps while I'm out, and you just do that at all levels. Seems to be a good way to do it. Pitching in teamwork, being aware when people are working overtime, making sure they're getting time off for it, not burning anybody out, everybody stepping up to help each other. Should have been the way the industry was all the time. The fun phase. That's how Amatangelo is thinking about it now in the early stages of the studio. The real test, the months leading up to launch, is several years off. Project Orion is still in its early stages. Amatangelo points out that there really aren't clear lines determining when a game enters different phases of production, but Project Orion is currently in what he calls the fun phase of game development. In the perfect world, when you're making a game, it's all ideation and concepts and putting stuff in concept art and then moving to the next stage once you're feeling solid about your ideas or maybe your story outline. Then you start prototyping things, he says. We're in that stage, but it's kind of blurred, like prototyping some things as well as concepting some stuff and working on the story. So, yeah, we got some prototypes going on. We've got some exploration, some pipelines set up, some story ideas being thrown at the wall, back and forth, concept art, that kind of phase, the fun phase. They're still trying to sort it out, in other words. They're doing a lot of planning and a lot of, does this look good? Does this make sense? Just can we come up with other ideas for this? It's pretty early. Emma Tangelo isn't sharing much more about what Project Orion is at for now. I did ask him if game console tech is where he wants it to be to meet his ambitions for the game, especially given recent online discussions about new generations of Xbox and PlayStation consoles. And sure, Emma Tangelo wishes tech was further along, but he admits he might always be wishing for that. I wish there were holodecks, you know what I mean? Who doesn't? One relevant example is AI, which Emma Tangelo himself brought up to me when he asked if I had stayed to listen to a later DICE talk between Xbox's Ian Zhang and the ESA's Stanley Pierre-Louis on video games and AI. Emma Tangelo tells me he himself had been listening to an AI expert talk about large language models and generative AI recently, where they expressed how it would always be unknowable how these models arrive at their conclusions. While their comment was intended to be a positive one, Emma Tangelo says he finds that idea terrifying. He'd rather keep AI busy with menial tasks rather than content creation. Hear, hear. For at least for right now, I would agree with that. My gut tells me that AI for pipelines, for tools, for helping with, let's call it, the busy work that no one really likes to do a lot of times. I think there's a lot of promising stuff on that front, he says. It allows developers to have more satisfying jobs overall because they could spend more time on the creative elements. So that's my optimistic take with AI and stuff like that. But as the game director of the next Cyberpunk, he admits the worst case scenarios, even if they terrify him, are useful fodder for storytelling at least. On the other hand, I got science fiction, he says. Yeah. So that was the story on IGN by Rebecca Valentine. And going over with the game director of Phantom Liberty, DLC, Gabe Amatangelo, who is also heading up the studio in Boston, was it? I think it was in Boston. And is working now on Project Orion. Which is the sequel to Cyberpunk 2077. So I hope you enjoyed that. I don't know how many people went to IGN and read this. I haven't seen a lot of videos talking about this story, but it's like 4 weeks old or whatever it is now, 3-4 weeks old. I haven't really seen a lot. Maybe just nothing's come across my feed. But I hope you enjoyed that. Getting a little bit of a look and a little bit of talk with the head of the studio, of the team there working on the sequel to Cyberpunk 2077, and also getting a little bit into the mindset of how he brought about Phantom Liberty and kind of rescued Cyberpunk 2077 from the mess it was in to really being applauded and lauded by the community once Phantom Liberty came out. So from Miss Valley Entertainment News, my name is Dread. Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.